where warm waters halt. That's the first clue. And then take it from there. The clues are chronological after that. One leads to another, leads to another. And when you get to the ninth clue, look down because you're where the treasure chest is. When I decided to hide that treasure chest, I knew exactly where I was going to go, where I was going to put it. It's in a place that's very dear to me, and I don't want to get too far into that because it'll give you a time frame, and that's a clue that I don't want to reveal. But there was never a second choice. There was never a second choice.
Why am I making this video? Unfortunately, Forrest passed away unexpectedly 3 months after he announced the chest had been found in June of 2020. Over the next couple years, the Fenn estate had reached out to me, asking me to ask the community to have patience and to give them more time because they would do the right thing. In May of 2023, Netflix was negotiating with the Fenn estate to include that Fenn Solution video in the Netflix series that just aired. Several months later, Charlotte sent out a text with permission to share on social media that the negotiations with Netflix for the Fenn Solution video had fallen through. It was at that time that I felt like the responsibility and the burden to share the content of that video fell on my shoulders. This is that video. Before I share the content of the Fenn Solution video, I want to mention the article Tony DeCopel wrote for Newsweek magazine back in March of 2013. He talks about reading Forrest's unedited biography called Ramblings and Rumblings, and mentions Forrest's now famous words, "Enter Yellowstone, that's where my heart is." He even goes on to quote Forrest's words regarding the best fishing spots on the Madison River, even suggesting that 9 Mile Hole was the spot. On June 11th, Okay, here we go, start over. On June 11th, 2020, Forest legal counsel insisted that he go on camera and discuss, after Jack found, after the, how am I going to do this? Okay, cut again. On June 11th, 2020, and cut. On June 11th, 2020, Forest legal counsel insisted that he go on record and mark and discuss where he hid the treasure chest and what the solutions are to the clues in the poem. This is the content of much of what was in that video. I am going to use my notes because I want to make sure that I get most of the verbiage correct. So this is all I'm reading from my notes from the content of that video. Forrest said the first clue is where warm waters halt. Madison Junction is where the Gibbon and the Firehole meet. The Firehole River is warm water due to the geysers along its banks. The second clue, and take it in the canyon downstream through Madison Canyon. Forrest even commented, why would searchers go upstream? This did not make sense to him. The third clue, not far but too far to walk. Forrest said it was 4 miles to 9 Mile Hole, meaning from Madison Junction, and that's too far for an 80-year-old man to walk. Fourth clue, put in below the home of Brown. Okay guys, I'm the messenger. I'm just telling you what Forrest said. He said, Mr. Brown, hence the reason Brown was capitalized, was a huge fish that Forrest and his father and Concy hooked but could never reel in. The word below, as in put in below the home of Brown, meant to cross the river slightly downstream from the fishing hole and where it is shallow, which basically, if you go there, it's across from the rock where Marvin is holding the stringer of fish in the picture in the book. So this is where I will interject now for the new people that are not part of the chase community, who have not been involved in the chase and all of Forrest's interviews since 2010. So at first, when I first heard Forrest say that Mr. Brown, that was the reason, my immediate result was, you have to be effing kidding me. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. However, as I thought about that, there were multiple interviews where Forrest did talk about how he used to name the fish in the Yellowstone rivers. You know, he would name them Mary or Johnny or Phyllis. So I guess for him to actually call and name a fish along with his father and Concy and call it Mr. Brown, if you know Forrest, I guess that makes sense. Okay, moving on. The fifth clue. From there, it's no place for the meek. It means crossing the river. Sixth clue. The end is ever drawing nigh means you are almost to the treasure. Next, there'll be no paddle up your creek. Forrest was talking about the wet creek, not the dry creek as some of us searchers thought. It defines and describes that you are in the right area. Just heavy loads and water high. Forrest described how the chest was heavy in his backpack and he was in knee-deep water. Next, if you've been wise and found the blaze. Okay, once again, this is what he said. He said he made a notch on a tree after he placed the chest against the log. He also added that the deadfall had a glow to it. There again, I'm the messenger. This is what he said. At that time, Carl asked him when he chose that particular spot, that special place, that nook log, and Forrest answered 5 seconds before he set the chest down. He said there was a depression there along that log. So moving on, Forrest continued to talk about hiding the chest that day. He said he fell crossing the river, He said he fell crossing the deadfall and hurt his ribs. He said he felt his last time crossing the Madison on the slippery rock bottom. He said he changed out of his waders behind a dumpster at Fishing Bridge on his way back to Cody. He also talked about running a 150-foot line from the edge of the river to the spot where he put the chest so he could find it the second trip. And it was a random length, and he afterwards, obviously he gathered it up, and he guesstimated it was 150 feet in length. And that's pretty accurate because the spot where Rudy found the nook log and the stick that had been in the chest, it was pretty darn close to 150 feet from the edge of the river. He also, in this video, he talked about his friend, and I'm not going to reveal the name of the friend, but it was this friend who had been searching for the treasure at 9 Mile Hole, and that Forrest, years ago, described as the 200-foot searcher. So last but not least, Carl insisted that Forrest find a map of Yellowstone National Park and mark the spot where he hid the chest. So Forrest rooted around. He found an old Yellowstone National Park brochure map. He circled the spot. He wrote the actual words 9 Mile Hole on it. He initialed it, and then Carl dated it. And this was to be used as the legal document for proof where Forrest hid the chest. And I was not allowed to present a formal picture of that map. So immediately I made a replica map of the exact way that map was marked and initialed and dated. And this is my replica of that map. One more thing I want to share before moving on was later that day when Forrest and Jack met in Jack's lawyer's office, Forrest told Jack the hints that were in the book were the picture with his father at 9 Mile Hole, the chapter In Love with Yellowstone, and Forrest talking about fly fishing in the chapter Fly Water.
You are in trouble.
Actually, I think I'm probably going to eat it before it ever makes it to your car.
I'm going to eat it. Oh, you won one of Denver Files' books? Awesome. Good.
For almost 8 years, Forrest was my best friend, my playmate, and my lover. From the time I first met him, October 1st, 2013, at the Too Far to Walk book signing in Santa Fe, until my last visit with him at his home, August 28th, 2020, I was so fortunate to have been able to spend so much time with Forrest. Through the years, I co-hosted the Fenberries, attended the chase-related events in Santa Fe that Forrest asked me to attend and take pictures and write up the articles and send to Dale for his website, as well as help with many of the media requests that Fen was getting for the people who needed a local searcher to go do a search for their work. In January of 2017, Forrest actually designated me his executive secretary to help with the plethora of emails he was receiving requesting his attention. Sometimes Forrest really was my playmate too. He allowed me to interview him for my silly Sundance movie. He participated in my silly chaos and embroidery go boots on the ground video I made with my search friend Sandy, and he even agreed to participate during COVID in just a say hello to the community video I did with him in Santa Fe when he opened his gate, said hello to the community, and then I paid him with a roll of toilet paper. It seemed like there was nothing that he wouldn't do. Through the years, Forrest even gave me his various books, always with a meaningful inscription and his coveted doodles. A couple that still stand out and touched my heart were Once Upon a While, where he thanked me for my help with the chase, and earlier when he handed me his Nikolai Feshin book before leaving our room, where he wrote, "Remembering the good times, chasing the treasure." And indeed, there were many good times. Near the end of July 2018, I was in Yellowstone, and I told Forrest I was going to go to Ojo Caliente and take a nude photo of myself under the full moon to be used in his upcoming birthday card. He retorted saying I didn't have the guts. Well, I did have the guts. And when I emailed him his birthday card the following month, he replied, "X-rated awesome, but please don't post it on the blogs because sometimes his grandson Shiloh read the blogs." So I didn't until later. Near the end of August 2020, Forrest invited me to his place for a chat. Since it was the height of COVID, we sat in lawn chairs under the pine trees 6 feet apart so we could remove our masks. He started by saying that he wouldn't talk about the chase or the ending, and then for the next 2 hours, we talked about the chase and the ending. Before leaving that day, I hugged and kissed Forrest goodbye and wished him a happy belated 90th birthday before strutting happily through the gate. Little did I know that would be the last time I ever saw him. Later that day, August 28th, 2020, Forrest emailed me and told me to call him. We made plans for me to return to Santa Fe after the Fen finale in West Yellowstone ended. Unfortunately, Forrest passed away September 7th before I could get there. For the next year, I had a terrible time trying to get over Forrest's death. I thought it might be cathartic to write a book, a memoir of my 8 years in the chase, my relationship with Forrest, what went on behind the scenes, and what took place post-find and after his death as the quest for answers became more muddied. I used my journal of impeccable notes beginning in January 2013, adding chapters as the years progressed. I never intended to publish this or to share it, but eventually allowed for people to either read part of it or the full thing. One of them was my friend Dale Neitzel, who was writing Forrest's biography, and he ran the main website for the chase through the years. Upon reading it, his comments were, "Now I understand why you love the chase so much, and you can never publish this."
If you should ever think of me 1,000 years from now, please ring my bell so I will know.
In September 2024, my friend Jens, a filmmaker who lives in LA, contacted me to discuss collaborating on a bell to be placed at 9 Mile Hole as a tribute to Forrest. Together, we selected a company and a design. Soon after receiving it, I took it with me for one last trip to Yellowstone and 9 Mile Hole. It now sits on a shelf here in my living room where I can talk to Forrest every day.